skill set. So first, let's revise our things, what we did. So last time we reviewed our syllabus, and let me see who else is there right now online. So there is someone is from, hold on one second, guys. Is a person joining from University of Alaska also. Is that person there? I think you are all from Illinois State University. Am I correct? Okay. Okay, I don't know what is the problem they are facing in joining, but they had a difficulty in. Let me check my email very quickly so that we don't miss anyone. Novelli. So let me see what is the number for this thing. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's start with our lecture, and hopefully they will be able to join. So as I was saying, today we will be talking about modeling process, types, assumption, and scales. We are covering lecture chapter 1. And so we'll be talking, last time we talked about some points and syllabus that we are meeting on Monday and Wednesday, Monday and Friday. And Wednesday is on our own. We will have slides in advance so that you guys can go over that or homework problems or discuss a project with it. One of the important thing about this course, which is different from other class, is that we will have a final project, practical research projects, real life projects, that we will do it in a group. We will form roughly a group of 2, maybe 3, but 2 will be a preferred one because we are not that many here. And then we also talk about grading, that assignment and quizzes, homework assignment and quizzes will consist of 50% of the grade. And so, and there will be one written exam somewhere between middle and end of the semester. And then the third thing is the research project. So there's 3 things we will have, actually 3 categories we will have on which we will grade. So I mentioned about you have to schedule your day properly in advance. I mentioned about what are the skills really needed in the job market today. I also asked you guys to review this nature video. Were you guys able to review this video, by the way? This video I mentioned last time, can mathematical models explain all patterns in nature? Okay, it is very, very important that something that I assigned, we should go over it, because we will be quickly speeding up our lecture, and it will help you get a perspective. Otherwise, you will be catching up whole throughout the semester. So it is highly recommended that you guys should go over this video and treat it as a homework assignment. I will going to discuss it next time. If you haven't, has anyone read it so far? I mean, gone over this video? No? Okay. So let's discuss next time, and I mean it, and I will discuss it on that, and maybe, and also I would try to put some bonus points for your participation in the class. So please be prepared, come prepared on the slide, come prepared on the things that I have asked you in the previous lecture. I also talked about software, programming language, sharing technology that are critical in today's job markets, no matter which discipline you go in. I also touched a little bit on historical perspective of mathematics as a field, like how the different subfields of mathematics have evolved over past century. Um, and also terminology, I touch base on what is actually a models. Um, uh, Basically, it could be different fields have a different definition of the models. Also, these are very important books for, sometimes it is very difficult to get a feel from the mathematical equations directly, but when we read some of the interesting books from a real life, then we get better understanding. These three books are very interesting, very informative, and give a very deeper understanding of mathematical models, although they are not mathematical books, by the way. But they gives you a different perspective how people thinks about models. um, some of the cores that are needed for today's modeling jobs is, from a mathematics perspective, it is statistics, multivariate calculus, linear algebra. um, these are, you all know about it, but I just want to re-stress on these things. No matter which field you go and become a modeler in that, you need these type of background. Quantitative biomathematics, and optimization is also another field. So in mathematics, if you know a little bit basic, again, you will not remember everything, but the goal is that you have taken that thing, you have a basic idea on this thing, and later on, if the job requires it, you could able to pull up the book and kind of understand the particular concept. It will be much easier for you to grab it quickly in the job if you had a prior exposure to that. So these are the basic courses, fundamental courses. But then there is, nowadays everyone is doing computational aspects in some level. In fact, it is considered as one of the primary skill sets nowadays, just equivalent to how well you know your spoken language. You also have to have a skill of computational skills. So basic computer programming, it is nobody asking you to have like a you become a computer science student, by the way, but at least a basic understanding of computer programming in any of the languages that you prefer. It's not really important because that is not your primary field, computer science, if it is not your primary field. Data structure and algorithms are very, very, very important course in computer science. That is, I would say, no matter which discipline you have to, because data is everywhere, no matter which field you talk about, and how do you structure that data in a computers is what data structure is about, and algorithms. Algorithm means is a general. It's a What is algorithm means? Algorithm means writing your views in a systematic step by step means. Algorithm not always means that you write a code, programming code, but it's writing your ideas into step by step form. Okay, first I will do this, second I will do that. For example, scheduling a day for the next day for your task, and that is also is an algorithm. Statistical computing is a very new field which actually mixed the idea of statistics and computing, which is very popular nowadays. Also, inference modeling and simulations. Many of these subjects are kind of an interdisciplinary. It's kind of not lie in one field versus another. So, quantitative biomathematics, which is this course, will cover many of these four different fields that courses that I am listing in the middle actually. um, Also important is the data visualization, and it's not about that you become a data scientist. That's why I'm telling you these data visualization, and that it's in any field. I mean, you want to see what model results have generated, and so visualization in a better way, or people could understand when your model becomes very complex, is very critical. Data wrangling is also when you, the data could come from a real life, but data could be synthetic. That means coming from your model also. So you need to know how to pick up the right type of data. Wrangling means cleaning and properly arranging it in terms of your research questions. Also, growing field is health economics. Economics mixed with health. So cross discipline, there are many fields that are coming into picture. So these are some ideas on courses that are relevant for you, and you should be having a prior background in some or other of some of these things. Um, I did mention last time, when I say to many people on the street that I am in a mathematics department, they say, "Oh, okay, so you do a lot of data analysis." But they don't understand the basic difference in statistics and mathematics. There is a wide difference, in fact, in what we call it as a mathematical models, what we call it as a statistics model. In fact, there's another field which we call it as a stochastic models. So there's three categories: mathematics, stat models, and stochastic models. Although stochastic and mathematical models sometimes is clubbed into one category, and statistics model is very different. So just to the main difference is in the statistic models, statistics model, you start with the data, but in math model you don't start with the data, which is a very important. And in math model, what we understand the role of mechanisms, and we will use this word and lot more time, and we will describe these definitions in a more critical way. And then in descriptive statistical models, these are called phenomenological models or descriptive models. um, Math models are more real because they are not on a specific data set. When you collect data, your problem become very focused to that group. So statistical models are more focused and has little realism in terms of carry forward to other population, less in until unless you do some kind of math model to, yeah. But in math model you can it's a for general. You can um, you can talk about any population in general, so it's more general than statistical models. So anyway, there's a book chapter that I have in Handbook of Statistics. The reference is given at the bottom of the slide. You would like to see that one, which talks about some of these models. um, there are certain questions that we as a modeler try to address. We have to know what are we doing. Otherwise, um, we are just becoming a quantitative biomathematics skill set without understand. Because many times when a person comes to you and asking you, okay, we need to resolve this problem in this application, then you need to ask a relevant question to that person in order to draw your mathematical equation in a proper way. um, so so what aspects of the reality are critical, like gender, race, social structures of some sort, that goes in the model, or cell levels? There could be many different aspects, so you have to know what questions to ask. What is the reality that you want to capture? What type of mathematical equation one should be? There are different types of difference equation, continuous equations, stochastic equations, agent based models. There are thousands of models that are available for us, and I will go over many of those ones, but just to give you uh, how much better are they simple. I mean, which model to use basically? Why not use a very simple line is a very simple model, right? um, Periodicity, whether the system is behaving. So things that you are generating in a form of a models are coming from a reality. So if the reality has been more stable path of the behavior of whatever problem you are interested in, or it is exhibiting the periodicity, regular periodicity, like measles outbreak. TB stands for tuberculosis, for example. Outbreak of a tuberculosis has a stable, it doesn't change quite a lot, or struck suddenly and then disappears for many years, like cholera outbreak, for examples. So there are different types of patterns, and what is the reasons for these patterns that you need to also incorporate. And what are the social, demographical, immunological factors that could bring the problem to the end. So these are the things to care about when you are kind of building a model. It's a very important thing to the question now comes, why really we have to do the mathematical models? Why can't we just um, if you see in the bottom of the slide, usually in the clinical practices, if you're talking about medicine and public health or epidemiology, um, basically these, what you do is you take the population and you do the drugs trial on it, and then you want to know what is the outcomes of it. For example, COVID vaccine. So they recruited like 10,000 or maybe maybe 1 million people in their trials, and they're testing the vaccine whether it works with them. Then in the December they finally decided, oh, in 1 million people it has a very good result, and therefore we should implement in the population. So that is a clinical practice in some sense. And but to do something like that, it's very, very, very expensive, very time intensive, very human resource intensive, and of course money. It all involves money, and therefore it is not feasible to do larger population to study. So there comes the role of models, and that's why we do the work of model. But to do something like models, you have a real world problem, you conceptualize it in a very simple way. Real life is extremely complex, everything is intertwined together, and it's very difficult to, so you kind of conceptualize the idea in terms of flow chart, conceptualizing it. What are the critical aspects for your research question? Not in general. You cannot solve every nature problems, but at least you can understand the small phenomena that is happening in the nature. And then once you have a conceptual flow chart diagram, which is indicating the key integrants that are responsible, then you write down a mathematical equation depicting it and the transition in these categories that you have. Um, and then basically from a mathematical model, you work on a computer models and finally results. Now, uh, when you do this thing, it is not the process that ends. It actually goes back to, sometimes when you get the results, you need to understand now go the whole actual problem in hand, and you may have to alter the model and redo all these steps. So this cycle continues like that. But there's some of the words that we use very often is validation, sensitivity, uncertainty. And these have a meaning attached to it. And the validation is whatever the results we have obtained from a model, is it really what we expect in a real life? So that's a validation. Sensitivity is what parameters, if I am wrong to in the some decimal places, um, then the results will not be way off, for example. So sensitivity and uncertainty talks about those things. So these are some of the parts of it. And um, in this, if I break it down into what I said in the previous slide, um, there are three aspects that becomes a task of a biomathematician. Okay, the task is modeling, task is analysis, and task is evaluation. Okay, so these are three distinct tasks that we do as a biomathematician. Modeling means what to capture in an equation. Okay, just from understanding the reality application, because you may not have an idea of, let's say, finance, and if you are modeling a problem in a finance, for example, so what are the terms that are critical in it, in the model, what factors we should take, that becomes very critical in modeling. So modeling is a very, it's not, modeling is not everything, but modeling is writing the I mean, understanding the application and writing a conceptual framework and mathematical equations, that is called as modeling. This part, first part. The second part, when you have the mathematical equation, then you need to do a mathematical analysis, right? So there's two parts to it. When I say analysis, there are two parts to it. One is mathematical analysis, understanding our mathematical equations using mathematical tools, but then also linking it to the data. And there comes some statistical aspects also. Whenever you talk about data, then basically statistical. So that's an analysis part. And the final part is evaluation of your results, whether whatever the goal of your model has been, have you achieved that thing? That evaluation parts also is very difficult. So when we say the this biomathematics course, quantitative, we are talking about these three distinct part, not only middle part, which is mathematical analysis. It is also modeling, it is also evaluation. Does that make sense, guys? So these are three distinct tasks that we do. Um, Now, we put different efforts. So suppose we have one day to do our project, then we are putting 30% of the effect in first part, in identifying how to write down the equations from the real life. The first part is this part, quantitative modeling, right? So that takes 30% of the time, 30 to 40% of the time. Actually, first two parts, first of all, you understand the biology, and second, incorporate into equation. The first two parts is 40%, roughly speaking. Second part take 20 to 30%. Actually, it could take more time depending on how complex it is models. But this is first part is very important, and it takes a lot of time. Why is it taking a lot of time, by the way? Why does 40% takes the first part, roughly speaking? And it's not like a very strict. Why does it take so much time? Any ideas, guys? Any guess?
It's not really one way of doing it.
That is very true. That is exactly very true. What could be a simple ideas there? Why? I mean, think about that. You all are a mathematician. I'm assuming that, right? You are in a mathematics department, so you are trained as a mathematician. You are not trained as a social scientist, right? You are not trained as a biologist. Suppose, I mean, you could be in one field or two fields, right? But if you are dealing with a problem not from your field, then you have to understand some terms, some concepts, some basic ideas in that before you even draw the what is important in the problem. So that's why it takes a lot of time actually to resolve that issues. Now, over a period of time, that time gets reduced because you get to know more and more things in that other disciplines that you are focusing your work in. Okay. Um, and the last part is validating your results, whether your results are right, and presentation of your results. And that takes like 20-30% of the time. So you see, when we talk about modeling, people say, okay, or when they teach the biomathematics, they only talk about mathematical analysis. But to me, mathematical analysis has no meaning if you do not do a good job in the starting and if you do not do a good job in the end, which is starting means real life to mathematical equations, and in the end is results to implications to what it means. So those three parts together is very, very critical, and that's what makes it as a good modeler. And modeler is not only about mathematical analysis. I mean, of course, in this project we will be touching more on the middle part than in the last two parts, but we will also touch last two parts. First part and the last part. Sorry. So where are these models used? Well, it is used in explaining the observed patterns. Why is certain things happening the way it is happening? For example, if you see, have you seen the graph of the number of COVID cases recently? Have you guys seen it? How the in the US, the number of cases has increased, then come down, then increase again, and then come down, and then it is increasing again. Now, at present, the shape is very like two one small peak and then larger peak and then more larger peak. Right now we are in the height of the peak right now in US. So why is this shape like that? That's an observed pattern. Can you reason out whether it is the population behavior or whether it is um, race and ethnicity, whether it is policies? What is causing that to have that pattern? So that is explain the observed pattern. Predict future behavior. If I want to say 2 months in advance, well, how many cases will be there? That is a prediction in the future. You can see my cursor, by the way, guys. Okay. Study the control measures. So, for example, if I begin a control measure here, vaccine, drugs, various things, then how the cases will come down, for example. So there is study the controller. Linking the data across scales. That means if I am studying outbreak in my city, then that's just a city. But if I incorporate people coming from different countries in my cities or different state in my city, so it becomes more global than a small city looking at it. So linking that data to scales is very critical. And estimating, sometimes it helps you estimating critical parameters. For example, how fast is the disease spreading? Okay, so there are certain features that we look into and try to do those things from the models. Um, there has been, this is a Business Insider article which was published in 2016. Um, and it's talk about on the right hand side 17 equations that has really transformed how we look into the um, different real life aspects. Many of those one originated solving physical problems. So if you recall, or if you would have been reading news articles, um, physics was dominant field in 70s, 80s, right? Even 90s. But then early 2000, with the invent of computer science, biologists were very thrilled and they started to have major role. There was a physics become less dominant than biology. So biology become more dominant in that and more discovery started to happen. And then recently medicine is taking over, or healthcare or epidemiology has been becoming more dominant field um, than basically physics or biology as such. In fact, recently now the data science is becoming a new field, which is data from any field basically, rather than a particular discipline. So these are the 17 models that have helped us um, understand the real life better. By the way, why I'm using the word model? Are these models, by the way? So, what is models? We are talking about mathematical models. Again, if you talk to biologist, it will be a mouse, and social scientists will think about flowchart. But here I am showing the equations, and therefore there are 17 equations. Are these same type of equations or similar type? What is the difference you are seeing in that? What is this thing?
It's an algebraic equation, and some of them differential equations.
Right, right. So some are algebraic equations, some are differential equations, some are difference equations, some may be functions, simple functions.
Mhm.
Okay, so there are and all of them are model, by the way. I want to stress that fact. The model is not always a differential equation. Models is not always a discrete equations. It's a combination. Some are partial differential equations. Okay. So, for example, this Black-Scholes models very heavily used in finance, economics. It's actually how the market is performing is captured by this thing, or you can predict in some capacity how the things will go in future. For example, using so there's a very good website called Ian Stewart. I would advise you to go there, that website, and look. And I'm putting all these references also. So go over these things. I mean, I mean, I put a lot of efforts in bringing all these ideas together. So you should go there and you see how different equations are explained very simply in a layman's term. For example, this is the details that you have to write, what each one stands for in order to understand the whole model equation. Okay, it is capturing the changes that are happening in some financial derivative. V stands for financial derivative, and the S stands for price of commodity, and T is a time. So how these various aspects are impacting the financial derivative. Okay, so there's a relationship between that. That's a very important model. Okay. Well, in biology, there has been also biology in general. There have been some fundamental models. Fundamental is that change the perspective of the field. Okay, so for example, Michaelis-Menten is a very famous model. Now, of course, over a period of time, it has become more sophisticated, but it was discovered by Michaelis and Menten together, or some ideas from Michaelis, and so, these are scientists' name, mathematicians' name that comes together and made this model possible. But it is used in biochemistry, Lochta-Volterra in ecology, predator-prey model type, Kermack McKendrick in disease epidemiology, infectious disease dynamic, Fisher in ecology and demography, reaction diffusion, for example. Huxley model in neuroscience. Fujinagumo is also a very important model of it. It's a special form of Hutkin and Huxley. Black-Scholes models in finance, for example, Navier-Stokes in fluid dynamics, Schrodinger in quantum mechanics. These are different, but these are foundational models that change the way people think in that area. Okay, so Lanchester is in warfare policy, for example, how the wars happen between the countries, how the armies, what is the capacity of armies one should keep, for example. So there are different Hill functions is used for in pharmacology a lot. So there is a homework problem for you all that I would like you guys to work on. Choose one field, one application field. So I've listed some of the field: epidemiology, ecology, social science, economics, chemistry, biology, medicine, and pharmacology, and search for 5 important models in the field. Name of the 5 important models in that field. Okay, Google search it. Okay. And then explain them in a sentence, simple sentence, what these equations are talking about. Okay, and describe the type of equation, whether it is a discrete equation, differential equation, partial differential equation. Describe that. Is the homework clear, guys? Okay, so let's quickly decide on it. If would you like to, would anyone like to prefer any application areas? Let's quickly take a choose one area so that I know who is doing what. I want everyone to do a separate one, not the same one.
I'll take biology.
You take biology?
Yeah.
Can I
Okay,
choose engineering? There is no engineering.
sure. You can take engineering, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else?
Chemistry.
I'm sorry?
I could do chemistry.
Okay. Chemistry. Okay.
I'll go with ecology.
Ecology. Okay. Anyone else?
Can I do medicine and pharmacology?
Fantastic. And Anamika, you can do biochemistry, for example, right? Okay. So we'll do this thing, write it down and send me those things as a homework one, step by step, 4 points that I've listed. Okay. Now, scales are very critical. When you model it, the scales become very, very critical, that we are talking about at a molecule level, single cell level, tissue level, body level, um, or a population level. And there is different model type that are used in each category, but the scales of the sizes are different. And when we talk about sizes, then the times are off. For example, Evolutionary behavior changes over years, decades, probably, maybe centuries, evolution. Whereas human life is just 70 years. So things changes in human body over 70 years, or like human behavior changes in years. Whereas cells behavior changes every minute second, for example. So the time is also it's a scale of a time, but a scale of a sizes also. That is, and therefore there are different types of models that is used in the biology. Again, these are very important aspects, like mathematical or statistical model versus mechanistical model, deterministic, stochastic, discrete, continuous, time and space, analytical and computational. There are different types of computational analytical model, population, individual. Now, the type of model I'm listing it here: function, difference equations, ordinary differential equation, partial differential equations, stochastic equations, fractional differential equations. Have you heard of fractional differential equation? Nope. So the derivative is always d by dt or d2 by dt, first order or second order, but there is d half by dt half. Half is a fraction. Okay, so you don't only have a derivative from 0 and 1, but you could also have a decimal derivatives, and that is called as a fractional derivative. Algebraic differential equations, AD stands for algebraic differential equation. ID stand for integral differential equation, which also have integrations and derivative both together in the equations. So there are different types of models, different way of expressing it in terms of mathematical analysis. Units are involved, whether we are interested in individual or group of individuals, or where will we model a group of individuals? Household. Suppose the unit is household. We are modeling a household. How is the household changing? Things in the household is changing. Or farms, those are bigger, or population in general, neighborhood, cities. So these are very critical to know in advance what I'm modeling before actually we begin to write down the equations. Temporal scales are very important, whether we want to only model one year. For example, if we are talking about mosquitoes, how long mosquito live?
Weeks.
Weeks, maximum a month, let's say, right? So for them, modeling for 10 years makes no sense, right? So if I want to interested in the behavior in the mosquitoes, then or something in the mosquitoes, then I would shorter time scale would be better. Long-term dynamics, few years or few decades or few centuries. What are we talking about? Evolutionary behaviors is a long-term behavior, more like it takes many, many years for evolutionary changes to happen. Connectedness, whether we want to model isolated patch or whether we want to model multiple population together interacting with each other. It could be very complex topology of the populations interacting. Gender, ethnicity, race, social age, economic structures, all these things become very critical in the modeling. So it's, even though we quickly jump to the mathematical equation, but that aspects of what is the critical population characteristics or modeling characteristic that is needed is a very important questions to begin with. Okay, so just to go about a very simple applications. Suppose there is a fisherman who catches shrimp in 10 days and he gives this data: first day 30 shrimp, second day 65 shrimp, and so on and so forth. Then how much, what is it's a cumulative number, total shrimps in 10 days. So how is this patterns we can capture? Well, one way to capture is, if I want to know what he will do in the 11th day or 12th day, how many he will catch, how we will know? Well, we can build a simple model which says, today, every day he's adding a constant number, roughly speaking. Okay, so C is a constant number of addition, and that we can model it with this simple equation. We can solve this equation. How do we solve it? Okay, PT will be what? PT will be PT minus 1 plus constant. I can substitute this. So this is the solution of this equation. This is the solution of this equation. Is the model clear, guys? Model is very, very explicit. It is saying at time t, this is the size of the population. And you every day you are adding a constant number. Then the next day will be whatever you have in the previous day plus a constant number, right? That's what it is saying. Okay, so you can solve this equation like this in a green color, and you can get an answer like this. Okay, so this is a simple model. But what is this model characteristic? How does this model look like? How does this model look like?
A line.
It's a line, exactly. But line in what variables?
Population and time.
Population and time, exactly. Simple linear model with population and time. This is another model, which is now saying the assumptions have changed here. What is the assumption which is changed here? The next day addition, which the addition was this one, right? So remember this R times U. I had a C in the previous case, and now I have this thing. So what I'm saying, it is not a constant growth every day, but growth depends on how many shrimps are there in little pond, for example, or wherever he's talking about. Maybe he has a fish tank. I don't know, maybe some. So it depends on how many it will grow. It depends on how many they are already present. You cannot have more than a certain number if there are very few quantities available there. So because all shrimps will be reproduced by the shrimps only. Okay, so it should be a function of PT. You can say that. That's an assumption here, not a constant number. The assumption is changed now. And you can solve this equation also, and it gives you an expression like this. What type of model is this? What type of shape it will generate?
Exponential.
Well, exponential, we talk it in terms of continuous case, but similar to that is a geometric. You're right, but it's called geometric in discrete case. Okay. You can now change that a population. So exponential model, what does it assume? What is it saying? The population shrimp, the catching of the shrimp will keep increasing, keep increasing. Is it possible really? Not possible, because there is limitation in the nature, right? So this increase in population will eventually going to slow down. And so therefore you can say, well, it could now have some limitation factor multiplied by this limitation factors, because you cannot always harvest unlimited. So there has to be some restriction, and that gives you this type of solution if you solve this thing. So these are the three models. Linear model is a straight line. Exponential model is a green curve, which is starts slow, but then picks up very rapidly later on. Starts slow, it's more horizontal, and then picks up very fast. Then the linear factor. And then logistic is start slow, rapidly, and then saturate. Okay, S-shaped. It is called S-shaped logistic model. Okay, so now the question is which model we should take, and these are called as mechanism. Each function, what mechanism I'm choosing to understand the system is, there are three different mechanisms. There's a linear mechanism, there's exponential mechanism. I mean, linear is from a mathematical perspective. We are calling this as linear, exponential, and logistic. Okay. But the understanding is coming from the biology in hand. I have just few minutes. Well, we are talking about relationship between input and output. We are talking about some control by, there are parameters that we can control over it. That is, but anyway, these are very general, you can read it. But actually what we are doing is simply like this. Simply we are doing some bookkeeping exercise of what is coming in, what is going out. Something which is coming in is addition, something going out is negative. And that's the model. In the previous model, what is the population, and then something happens in that little time, and the next time step is some adding happens, some subtraction happen, some may be zero, some may be positive quantity, and that will result in the question is, how do you model birth? How do you model death? How do you model immigration? How do you model emigration? Is it a linear function, quadratic functions, logistic function, many different type of function that you can use for birth, death, immigration, emigration. Okay. It's just like filling up the tap and leaking out the tap from the bucket, and you are tracking the population. Okay, so this is what it is. Changes that are happening, plus minus. There is a susceptible, infected, recovered. Is in these models. I have 1 or 2 minutes, but give me a couple of minutes more than what is my allocated. So infectious disease, usually you divide the population into susceptible, infectious, and recovered type of people. And then basically this term is only happens when infected people come in contact with susceptible, then the new cases. This is the new cases. And then people recover by themselves after some time. Okay, so there is 2 ways to model. One is a differential equation, simply something coming in and something going out, plus and minus. So if arrows is coming in, the I has 2 quantities. So this will come in and this will go out. And that's how this will come in and this will go out. This is a continuous differential equation, but this is a difference equation, discrete equation. Same idea, but this is a time is continuous and time is discrete. You can use simple Excel sheet to make these models work. Of course, we will do sophisticated way to model it, but simple way to do it. And we will talk about it, how to actually try to, this is a homework too for you guys. Try to make this sheet for a discrete case, only for a discrete case. Let's see if you can make this thing in Excel, only in Excel. That's the homework.
Using those same parameters? The same parameter?
Right,
okay.
Exactly. The same parameter which is given here. This is given here. Okay, very good. Good question. Okay, John Grant is considered as one of the first known person to be as a modeler, and that was in 1600. And basically what he did in the 17th century, he tabulated the data and said, based on different age, how many people are dying, because otherwise they were just throwing up the data randomly and nobody has a structure. So he gave a structure in a form of a table, and that was the model. So model is as simple as table and as complicated as integral, differential, stochastic combination equations. Okay. So anyway, I would like also to go over this, how you will be going to, I'll show, I'm ending today right now, but I want to show what else I have in the slide, which I will cover next time also. Writing your report, writing any scientific documents, knowing about that thing is very critical. So I will talk about how do you read an article, how do you critically read a scientific document, how do you write in introduction, method, and result format. This is what I will talk about. I will talk about how to read particular content without spending more time into something which is not necessary. And then basically go over these ideas, how to read and write a scientific documents. I will also talk about some terminology that we are commonly use. Model, we have already talked about. Mechanisms, we have already talked about. Assumptions, we have already talked about. Scale and units, but we haven't talked about dynamics. So we will talk about some of verification is what, calibration is what, validation is what, evaluation is what. These words are commonly used, and if we don't understand the terminology, we fail to understand the modeling ideas. Um, we will be talking about different types of sensitivity in the models, parameter sensitivity, observational sensitivity, structural sensitivity, and outcome sensitivity. Don't worry about it. It is more complex, but we will talk about forward problems, backward problems. Forward problem is given initial condition. What does the solution look like? And inverse problem or backward problem is given a solution, what is an input? Given a solution, when can you what is a solution means? Given the data. If you are giving a data, can you tell what are the parameters of the model is, estimates of the parameters? So that's a backward problem, or call it inference, or it's called as inverse problems. So these are same terminology. Okay, the homework also is chapter 1, 28, 29, 30, 31. That's the homework for you guys. Again, these are slides are uploaded in the resource section, so you don't worry about. The only thing I'm adding, which is not there in the slide, is what did I said just now as a homework? I forgot. Yeah,
The Excel.
yeah, the Excel. Excel is what is not there in the homework, but add the homework, this one. That is the only homework.
So what do we do? Can you explain in Excel? Do we have data on that uploaded?
Well, we don't need the data. What we need is this difference equation, which is already there. And then you need a parameter, which is already given here. These beta and delta are parameters and initial conditions. Initial conditions are here.
Oh, we generate data, right?
Yeah, this is what you are generating.
Okay.
So you have to somehow see even the formula are given here, basically. Okay. So I want to see if you can generate this table and this graph.
Okay.
Generate this table and the graph, right? Okay, that's the idea.
What's the deadline for homework?
Okay, so how about Wednesday? Wednesday is the homework deadline for
Like
first.
including, right?
All the three. So there are 3 parts today. What is the 3 assignments as 3 parts? What are the 3 parts?
The field specific
Right.
assignment, and then the
So-
SIR and the book.
SIR and the book assignment, right? So there are we want to find a model name in the fields, and this the first part of the assignment. Second part is the Excel generating SIR type model, and third part is doing the. Okay, let me reduce the number of problems for you guys here. In this part, only cover 29 and 30. Forget about 28 and 31. I will upload the latest file as an homework assignment here. So 29 and 30 as a homework only. Leave the first one and leave the last one. Okay, only 2 problems here.
And you said you want these emailed to you?
Right. So you will write down in a PDF format, or you will attach your Excel sheet. Okay, and upload it in the Dropbox in the ReggieNet. Okay, ReggieNet Dropbox is where we will be collecting the data. Okay. Next time we will talk about difference equation and discrete time equations, and then we will do how to do analysis on that. Okay, which is chapter 2. So we will be done with chapter 1 today, and we will be starting with chapter 2 on Monday.
Do you mind if we if we use something other than Excel to do the SIR model? Is that
No,
okay?
there is a reason why I'm asking you to do Excel. We will come to that. Hold on, have patience. We'll come to the more sophisticated R, Python, whatever you want to use, and I will be okay with that. And actually, I prefer using R or Python. But at present, Excel is you are underestimating the role of an Excel. Excel is, right now in a job market, if you are not going in a public sector, in fact, in public sector also, if you're not going in academy as an professor, most of the job, 90% of the job uses actually Excel and Word to do a lot of calculations. You don't underestimate actually it is very powerful also because there's lots of add-ins. There's a Visual Basic tools that you can use it. And you are basically, we will not go in that direction, but at least we should be knowing some basic